Well, hi, Judy.
Lisa, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood, except it's gloomy and awful and raining, and it thundered all night.
It did again. I mean, it is grimy out there. And so I guess what is it? Today is April 1st. So
April Fool's
is
Day.
April is April
Nature's
nature?
April Fool's Day.
Yes,
Is that
exactly.
what you're trying to say?
Yes. That's
Okay.
exactly what I was trying to say.
That took
So
two of us, but you got it out.
Well, hi,
Uh,
Judy. So today we're done with the 5 C's of legacy writing, and now we're starting into a new series about storytelling. And today we're starting out with it's kind of a smorgasbord starting us off on our storytelling journey here. But we were talking about how sometimes legacy writing is kind of off-putting or kind of seems kind of scary for lots of people. You brought that
so
up, and I thought
heavy.
that was really important. Why don't you tell us what you mean by that?
Well, what I was saying is sometimes the way you remember something can be, as you said, kind of heavy, kind of actually to somebody else kind of boring. So, sometimes it's nice to tell the story. People love to hear stories. They don't necessarily want to hear just your black and white experience. They want some color.
Hmm, hmm.
Is
And
that kind
how do you add color? What do you mean by that?
Well, by adding color, I mean sometimes you can add a little poetic license. You can make it a little more interesting. I don't mean make it up. I just mean take that same situation and maybe pay attention to another part of it, or something that would be more interesting to the reader or to the listener, um, so that your story doesn't fall flat, but it has some depth to it. It has some.
So we were talking briefly a few minutes ago about one of our latest writing, and it's a story about getting lost.
Mhm.
And all of us tried to write different getting lost stories
Right,
for
it's
our blog
easy in
this
our
week.
family.
Mhm. And but we were all present on the day and the event that you wrote about, which was getting
Yes,
lost to a family trip up in northern Wisconsin when we got lost in the Nicolet State Forest.
going to Eagle River to a cottage.
Exactly. And so what was interesting about that is, your take on the story was different from mom's take on the story to begin with.
Right. Mhm.
And, she was debating with you some of the intricacies of the experience. And you were like, hey, this is my story. Hands off.
Yeah, I remember it like I remember it, and I
Hmm,
tell it like I tell it, and if a phrase sounds better this way, so be it.
hmm, hmm. And now, but were you using poetic license when you told that story?
I think so. I
How do you
think
mean?
so.
How do you mean?
I'm not sure I can define it. I mean, eh, okay, the example of bursting out of the woods,
Yes.
you
Okay.
just shared with me that you were walking on a road, you weren't in the woods. Well, my picture of it, because I wasn't with you,
Hmm, hmm.
was all of a sudden out of the darkness came you and Michelle and Annie, and
The
you
dog.
were yeah, Annie the dog, and you were kind of you were kind of hyperventilating and saying, "We almost got hit by a moose or a caribou," or I said a moose,
Run
Lisa.
over.
Yeah, run over. And my picture in my mind was that you were bursting out of the woods in the Nicolet Forest. Well, that wasn't exactly what it was, but it made it a little more exciting to me.
Well, and what was so fascinating when I read that was like bursting out of the woods. We were walking down the road. Michelle and I were not on anywhere. I mean, we were not going to get off that road and get lost. I mean, that was the furthest thing from our mind. So when you said bursting out of the woods, is like, oh, that's interesting. But that was your story. You're sticking to it. That's what has been published. That is the way you
Exactly.
wrote it.
Well, you didn't
So
correct me when I read it back to you guys over dinner, so I figured it had to be semi-accurate, you know.
you didn't edit that into it after our dinner?
Yes, I did. Actually, yes, I did. You're right,
Mhm.
because we
I
only
think I
write
would have
for
corrected you on that because,
we
like, I
only
just
write for 15 minutes, and
mhm,
so I didn't have
the ending.
that. I didn't have the story about the drunken people the drunken guys pulling up next to the van. You're
The
right. I
car
had
drunken teenagers that mother said we were stranded.
we were lost and out of gas. Oh my goodness.
So if you want to come back and abduct us or do mean things, great. We'll still be here. Yeah.
We'll be
Good
here.
idea.
Yeah. And when they said, "Well, we'll go on ahead and send someone back," I went, "Oh my God, we dodged a bullet." And then we all jumped on Sandy and proceeded to lecture her about keeping us safe, right?
Exactly.
Oh.
Exactly. So what you're saying is really the poetic license, what you're talking about is when you have a story,
Mhm.
get it down as you remember it.
Right.
And if it's not quite accurate, just consider poetic license. So me and Michelle and I walking out, bursting out of the woods is your poetic license. And guess what? I'm not going to bust you about it. It's fine. It really doesn't matter. It made your
Well,
story
if I
sound
had to write it
exciting.
again, I would have to say you burst out of the darkness because you did,
Yes. Okay.
and
I would
you
agree with that.
yeah,
Yes.
and you were shook up, and I just pictured that you were coming from something dense because you were having trouble finding your way, and I never would have thought you were on a road. Isn't that interesting? We've
That's
never talked
crazy.
about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about poetic license. Now the direction I thought we were going in here was, when we write about legacy, one of the things that you and I had talked about is, sometimes creating legacy is sounds really highfalutin to lots of people. It sounds like really important and really deep and profound. And really, what we're doing is we're just telling our stories. And
Right.
I hope that really frees it up for lots of people because this
Mhm.
isn't deep and you have to make sure that you get the kernel of truth in every piece of writing that you have because
Mhm.
this is your one and only opportunity to leave a legacy.
Mhm. Yeah, I think people can look at it a little heavy. They can,
Mhm.
we have a blast doing it. We have tons of fun, and I think we write. I would say 95% accurately, and
Mhm,
the other
mhm.
5%, I saw it differently than you saw it, than Sandy saw it, than Michelle saw it.
Yep.
But I don't think that really matters. What matters is the kernel s- of story that goes through what we're telling, and our purpose in that is that our friends, our heirs, people who would read this, get to know us a little bit better. They get to know something about us, and they can, some things like several of the comments on Sandy's writing the day before from her friends said, "Oh, I've had days like that," or, kind of thing, and, like, one of her friends said, "You and this key thing, what is it with you losing keys?" And, so
Mhm,
it was
mhm.
kind of fun. It gives you a relating point with people,
Yeah,
and something that everybody can say, "Yep, I've been there, that's happened to me," and
love it.
only Sandy is, like, getting lost on steroids.
She is. She had so many stories to pick from that she barely knew where to begin. So we really
Mhm.
had to rein her in because otherwise she would have been writing for a week. Yeah.
Forever. Yep.
Mhm.
Exactly. And, she likes to live life spontaneously.
That's a big
She
word for her.
doesn't like to
Mm,
plan.
mhm.
She likes to s- call you up and say, okay, let's go. We're leaving. And I'll say, where are we going? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Well, when you
It
do
has its
that,
drawbacks.
it does. And sometimes it turns out great, and sometimes it's really not great. So, not telling anybody
Especially
that.
when you happen to be the one who's waiting to be picked up because you have another event to go to. And
Exactly,
yeah,
as in
yep.
Sandy's writing.
As
Yeah,
in the writing, yes.
it's pretty funny. So that getting lost was actually, I think, one of our, um I wrote
Touchstone.
900 words and I usually write like 300. So, I mean, um
Hit a
it
nerve.
really sparked a nerve for me to, get
Mhm,
some
mhm.
things down. And Sandy said to me, "Boy, you made me sound like a bozo." And I said, "Oh yeah?" "Oh yeah?"
You think?
Well,
Mm.
you might wanna think about that. So,
Mm.
I don't go anywhere with Sandy anymore without a map,
No,
and
no.
I know maps are old-fashioned because everybody has a Garmin or a GPS or whatever,
Our
but mine
phone?
never works. Mine never works out in
You
the
don't have,
country.
like, Google Maps or something on your phone?
Yeah, but I don't always have a good signal.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, anyway,
Okay, that makes
that's
sense.
beside the point.
Okay. Well, the other thing that I wanted to talk about with storytelling is how storytelling really helps us, in the positive sense and the negative sense, to really kind of examine our lives and reflect upon things that we've done, things that we've said, things that we're places we've been, and kind of think about if that's something that we want to continue to experience and have in our lives
Hmm.
or not so
Hmm.
much.
Well, exactly. I remember reading a really good article one time that was named "Why Do I Keep Making the Same Dumb Mistakes?"
Hmm.
And it was very insightful. I have no idea if you could look it up on Google or whatever, but it's kind of like that when you read something and you say, "Ooh, I don't want to do that again," or you think, "Wow, that was really cool. That was fun," and most of these things we laugh about them after the fact, so they can't be too horribly
Awful.
negative,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah, because
mhm.
we use them. They make good stories.
Well, I've actually read I don't know if it's a travel blogger, a travel writer, or something like that, but they said, I think it was a man, so he said, he purposefully will kind of step out of his comfort zone and do things where there's a good possibility of getting lost or, having a problem because he's a writer, it provides a natural opportunity to have a good
gives them
story.
Gives him material. Yep,
Mhm, mhm.
absolutely. And we both have read the book by Matthew Dix about storytelling, and he actually in his book goes into he'll tell the
Right here,
story and
Matthew
then
Dix,
he's
story
story
worthy.
worthy. He's a
Yep.
great
Here you
great
go,
writer,
Matthew.
and
Love it.
yeah,
Love this
love it.
book. Yep.
He
We
he
actually
goes
interviewed him last season about his newest book.
his
Um,
newest book is Someday
Someday
is
is
Today.
Today. Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and all of us have said, "Oh, I'll do that someday."
Mm.
Maybe someday I'll do that. Yeah, I'd like to write a book someday. And his book is very insightful. It's basically 22 simple, actionable ways to propel your creative life. So, and sometimes what I have found with us, and I'm feeling like this could happen for other people watching or listening, once you start writing and
Mhm.
you start putting things down on paper, it makes you want to do it more. It's like you develop this habit, and it's actually fun to go back. I mean, I go back and look at our book that we wrote from 2014 to 2022, and I don't even remember what we wrote, that some of them are in there, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot about that," and
Mm.
it's really, and the way the stories are told, we're blessed in our family. I mean, everybody has their own style, and I think they're all fun to read.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
So there's
So,
no rules.
so, the other thing that I wanted to get into is, when we write,
Mhm,
it's mostly a together process. We do most of our writing, together when we go out to eat once a week. But when we sit
mhm,
back and we come back and we put it down on on the blog, then it's more of a solitary endeavor, and we're
right,
looking for pictures that go along with it.
right,
And you know what's really nice about writing is that we're able to use it as kind of a reflection of
mhm,
where we've been and where we want to
mhm,
go.
mhm.
And I don't think, how should I put this? So many people just kind of steamroll on ahead in their lives without sitting back and thinking, is this what I want to be doing right now? And if
Mhm,
not, what do I want to be doing? And looking
mhm.
back into their history of who they are and who they've been for clues of what really gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of who you are,
Satisfaction.
satisfaction.
Mhm,
Exactly.
mhm. And I think, sometimes you'll say to somebody, "Well, what would you like to do for your life going forward?" "I don't know." You get that answer, and it's like, if you're
Mhm.
not reflecting, if you're not going back and looking at it, I'm not talking about living in the past. I don't mean that. So I want to be really
Good point.
clear.
Good point.
You need to be moving
Mhm.
forward, and you have lessons and ideas and thoughts that can compel you forward in the things that you write down.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Is that fair? Yeah, I
Totally.
think it's
Yes.
fair. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I can't tell you, first of all, the enjoyment that I've gotten. And I'll think about these things sometimes, if I'm at work or like right now I'm on leave from work, and
Mm-hmm.
the thoughts and the ideas and all have been spurred by the writing, and
Mm.
I love it.
Mhm.
I just love the feeling. And I didn't do a lot of journaling and a lot of diarying
Diary.
and stuff.
I'm gonna call it
Diarying. Blah,
diarying,
blah, blah, blah.
diary writing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
didn't do a lot of that really before we started.
Mhm, mhm,
I had a lot of thoughts, but there was no action with those thoughts. So I'm
mhm.
really pleased that we've been doing this and that it's been so satisfying.
Well, what I think too is when we talk about examining your life through storytelling and through this legacy writing process, I think the other thing that happens is when you get something down on paper, it sits for a while because I think thoughts can, you said you think a lot of things, but
Mm-hmm.
until you actually put something down on paper, whether it's for yourself or for somebody else like in legacy writing, it flits around and it's
Mm-hmm.
gone. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have time to sit and gel and create change in your mind or in your life.
Well, and sometimes it ferments. Sometimes it leads to something a little bigger than your original thought. It's like you can accept the original thought and then you think, but how about this? And well, I could try that. And
Mhm, mhm.
wow, I never looked at it that way. This is a good, all those things. And, I know that we all have played with meditation. I can't say I do it every day, but when you have thoughts that are growing in your mind and you meditate, often you get answers to those thoughts. So I that's a little off the subject,
Well, I
but I
think
think,
no, no, no. I think really I've thought about this too, and where writing and legacy writing and journaling, it's a form of meditation in that you're really directing your thoughts, you're emptying your mind onto the page. You're not letting that monkey mind spiral
mm-hmm,
in your head.
mm-hmm,
Instead, you're calming things down. You're bringing things in. You're focusing your mind. And I think that
mm-hmm.
is a very meditative process.
I never looked at it that way. That's really, I think
Mhm.
that's a great way to look at it, because when you can gain clarity over what has been, it can really help you in what you want going
Yes.
forward,
That's
doing the
exactly what
next
I'm
thing.
getting at. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's what I
Yep,
mean.
exactly.
Beautiful.
So, and you said something, you said we're done with the writing. We actually had put number 5 of our writing tools was storytelling. So this is
Oh,
actually the
this
end of our
is the
series
fifth.
of 5. So what we're going to do then is take that number 5 and we're going to let that grow, because we feel like that's really an important component to your writing tools.
Mhm, mhm.
When you listen to people, you go, to a get together and people start telling you a story, they really draw you in. They really are interesting. They really,
Sometimes.
yeah,
Sometimes,
and,
and I
and
think there are
sometimes,
some important components of what make a good story.
and that's what's coming next for us.
Yeah.
We're actually going to go into those elements and make sure that we're clear. I mean, yeah, some people are so boring that you just, you're at a party and you want to get away. You're looking around, who can I go talk to, because they're
Mhm,
driving you crazy, or they're one-sided. They
mhm,
tell their story, but they don't want to hear yours. And I think that's important too. I think if you're going to share verbally, now when you're sharing in writing, you have one advantage.
You've got the stage,
You're the yeah, you don't have to share. You're definitely
but you also, if you're sharing a story that has importance and depth to it, you wanna be able to share it in a way that they don't read the first paragraph and be done. You want
exactly.
you've got to be able to write it in such a way you want to be able to write it in such a way that people want to read it. People want to read more. Yeah.
The way
And I
I
think,
think of it is it's not newspaper writing.
no.
Newspaper
Mm-mm.
writing, you could not get through some of the newspapers that are printed if you wrote the way we're talking about. You read the first paragraph and then you go on because there's so many pages and so many articles, and maybe one might grab your attention and you read a little bit more, but you seldom read to the end of the article. Am I right? Okay.
Totally true. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So we don't want to do newspaper writing. We want to do storytelling that's compelling
mhm,
and that draws you in and that keeps your attention and maybe thought provoking,
mhm, mhm.
all those things. And we're going to talk more about that.
And
Teaser, teaser.
and what's so fun, I think, Judy, is that, because the material that we're writing about is from our own lives, that like takes away like 3/4 of the pressure because
Mm-hmm.
you are the expert. You're not
Mm-hmm.
having to come up with, characters or, things out of thin air and pull your imagination. It's already been, the story is already there. You
You don't
just
have
have
to do
to,
research about how to do an autopsy because we're not doing autopsies.
mm-mm.
The research we're doing is our memories. And those
Mhm,
memories can be tweaked and they can be, but sometimes memories are forgotten. So, like when we
mhm,
go through pictures, looking for pictures for our
mhm,
writings,
mhm.
I'll actually pull out some that I think this could be interesting down the line as a
Yes.
topic. And
Mhm, mhm.
because once you start remembering, it's just very mind expanding. It helps you go back in time and pick out those things that you'd really like to share.
Mhm, exactly. And, we were just talking a little while ago that pictures are sometimes a great springboard
Mm-hmm.
for future writing, and how you've done that. I've done that. And, like I was talking about naked baby pictures. It seems like so
Mm-hmm.
many people have naked baby pictures. And it's like, what is it about naked, baby laying on a changing table, on their belly, looking at the camera in some quizzical way. That parents just love taking those pictures.
What's funny is that I came across my naked baby pictures of my son Matt, and the first four had him. He had one of those hooded bath towels, and he was hooded and kind of draped with the bath towel so you couldn't see anything. And I thought, well, at least I was tasteful about my naked baby pictures. And then I got to the fifth one, and there he was, stark raven naked, laying on the changing table. And I thought, ha, you weren't so smart. You took that one too. And I thought, well, maybe I was thinking if he was really a shy person or didn't really want to share it, I could
Was he on
use
his
one of
belly?
those. Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah. So you were just seeing his buns, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I laughed at myself because I thought, God, you were covering all the bases there. Some kind of covered up, but he still had the same silly grin on his face.
Mhm, mhm.
I don't know if he'd be embarrassed about the naked one or not. He'd probably do an "oh mom," kind of
Of
thing,
course,
but
he's still a sweet young thing. So,
yeah, exactly.
well, Judy, we're gonna wrap things up here.
I guess it's time.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
continue to tell our stories on our blog. So, look there for our weekly stories on particular topics,
Mhm.
and we'll
And just to
continue.
review, we pick a
Yeah.
topic. We have topics that we set up, and
Mhm, mhm.
the week consists of, from Tuesday to Friday, a writing from each of us.
Mhm.
So you can kind of compare and see how we each thought differently and the same about the same subject, right?
Exactly. And Monday is reserved for the posting of our podcast. We've
Hmm.
been working on getting the video of the podcast on YouTube. And so that's been fun and interesting. I've done that a couple of times. And then on the weekend, we just put random craziness from the Sidetrack Sisters.
Exactly. I mean, you're getting to be quite an engineer here. You're really learning all the ropes, and I think that's great because then I don't have to. No, I'm.
It is fun. I have been, I mean, talking about changing your life or, examining your life and moving forward. This process of blogging and podcasting and doing our books and I've been coaching. It has
It's great.
been definitely been propelling my life forward.
I think it
Mhm.
keeps me sane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, I love you, Judy, and we'll talk to you again later.
Love you too. Have a wonderful, beautiful day, even though it's
Thanks.
yucky out.
Ugh. Okay. Later. Bye-bye.
Bye.